We were supposed to do it at the same time?
Yes. Yeah. No. We're good. Everything went according to plan, and we're recording now. So
Okay.
I won't waste any more time, motherfuckers. We've come a long way, and now we are in the phase 1 finale of the Landi Lodge. And I couldn't be more excited to bring you this round table of goons to talk about a wide variety of nonsense and bullshit. So let me introduce you to my guests. One, John Robinson, a classic, known for the trolley problem in his first episode and the in-depth conversation of mythology in the second episode. The feature from episode 1, Joe Santangelo, who made a triumphant return in the Game of Thrones debate. And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, because we have a Sage of the Lodge bias when it comes to David Freeze. And speaking of the Sages of the Lodge like himself, we have to thank them because they are just sometimes I like to picture that scene in the Avengers when all the heroes come back to life. I just picture all the sages just emerging to keep this podcast going. And
on your left.
And all those motherfuckers, thank you to Charlotte Astri, Alex Pamal, Chris Perkowski, Leah Lavette, Scott Castellano of End of the Bench, Maria Palmieri, my loving parents, Andrew Parker, Julie Rossman, Kevin McBride, Richard Arnold, Dan Muller, Andrew Clay, Roger Kemp, and the baddest motherfucker in the Southwest, Shane Thomas Driscoll. You're all awesome. And we could not have...
Round of applause.
Round of applause.
Really went around
Could
your
not
face.
be where we are without you. But without further ado, gentlemen, what's going on?
How are we doing?
Good to be here back.
Dude, I'm happy to have all of you here. I want us to just jump right into it. So when we got together and I said I wanted to do this, we originally were going to kind of focus it around the PS5 event, but that got postponed, I believe rightfully so. But we had some new groundbreaking news. And David, I'd love for you to fill in the Landi Lodge audience on what the fuck just happened.
So basically, DC Comics, longtime comic company, has ditched Diamond Comics as their distributor, which for years has been basically the only distributor in the comic scene. So DC leaving that company is DC and Marvel together are like 80% of.
And I was going to say, Marvel also went through Diamond Publishing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone went through Diamond Publishing, and just those big two are at least 80% of the. What'd you say, John?
Well, what does this mean? Does it mean there's going to be no comic books?
No, it means that they're going to other companies to distribute.
Smaller companies, at least for now.
Yep. Like, I can't remember the name of it, but Midtown Comics in New York, they set up a distribution company, and that's one of the ones they're going with. And Penguin is going to be for their, I guess, graphic novels.
So let me ask you, David, how do you see this changing the DC landscape?
I don't know how much it'll change creatively. Business-wise, it's a whole new kind of game. It's like we got some competition now, like real competition.
True.
You know what I mean?
I can imagine that the digital sort of age going into this, people looking it onto their phones, having some sort of like AR sort of relationship to the comics, maybe that you buy, where it pops out off of the page, or there's a lot of different ideas that can go from here, and maybe there's needed competition to really make that happen.
Exactly.
It's really interesting you say that, because when I think about this story, it's like a legacy company that was the middleman between the comic book publisher and distributing the product. And now it's like this company probably specialized in print because of how long they've been in the game. It almost makes more sense for DC to go to people who specialize in digital as well as capable of distributing print.
That's sort of what I think is happening, because they're going through 3 different publishers now, or distributors now. So it's the Midtown Comics one that I was telling you about, Penguin, and there's one other that I'm not sure about the name. So maybe that could be their online. because their hugest deficit, hugest, whatever, is their internet and their digital sounds. Because Marvel has that whole Marvel Unlimited thing where you can get comics that are coming out that day and getting it through their, website. Comixology is kind of a thing, but that's like a third-party thing. What else?
Well, I was going to say, because this is, I feel like, at least in the world of DC, this is like the third of major stories. Now, on the first end, we had a complete change in creative direction for Superman.
Yes.
And on top of that, I don't know if who's heard this and who hasn't, but HBO is gonna release the Snyder cut of Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for it.
So I don't know which one you guys want to jump into first. I feel like the Superman one's going to be on you a lot, David, to tell us exactly what this change in creative direction is. But as for the Snyder cut, I don't know if you guys saw Justice League, but I completely skipped over it because it didn't really look very good.
I liked it.
You liked it?
I did. I think that was the best. Like
the Justice League. You liked the Game of Thrones. You hated the Game of Thrones finale, and you liked the Justice League.
I did. I liked the Justice League.
These are the worst films I've ever seen. I talk about it as like
worst.
From someone who wasn't even into Superman growing up, didn't really like read many comics. The most I got really was to Batman was the trilogy that I saw. Oh, and a few those old movies.
Right, the cartoon,
of course. But I mean, meanwhile, I really liked the Justice League. I had nothing to really base this off, but I liked it too.
Wait! But did you see the movie Justice League, or are you talking about the cartoon back in the day? Because I loved the fucking cartoon.
The movie, yeah, the movie was.
You like so with 2 out of 3 of you liked this movie.
Dude, this fucking god creature come down, and they're fucking like
I've heard nothing but garbage statements about this film. This is new to me.
No, I liked it. It was dark. I know it was well done.
I liked Joss Whedon coming in. It was anything that was Snyder, I hate. So I hated Man of Steel. I hated
Man of Steel and like the Justice League.
All right, I liked all of the movies. I liked every single one.
Man of Steel was garbage. Okay, straight
That
up
was cool.
garbage.
The dude's like jumping the air and shit, and he's saving people, and
it's not Superman.
Got that cold sort of like gritty sort of feel to it. I don't know.
But that's not Superman.
So what was the missing ingredient, David? I know you
Superman.
and I have had this conversation before, and I think I know the answer, but you could articulate it much better than me. What was the Snyder versus Superman missing?
Superman is this beacon of hope, and you reduce him to this crybaby Batman wannabe. And the whole point, their whole thing is like the duality.
Screw you, because that's the same deal with Luke Skywalker, and you liked that.
No.
Skywalker was the beacon of hope, and they turned him into a crybaby.
Not necessarily.
What's going on here?
There are points in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back where Luke does give in to his dark desires. So there was shades of that in there already. Okay, Superman is a guy who can do no wrong.
Shut up. Luke Skywalker refused to give up on his space Hitler father when he was going to give up on Kylo Ren because of a bad dream. Eat my ass.
I disagree.
It's okay. You know but go back to Superman. Let's keep this.
I have an important question.
Yes.
Who is Snyderman?
Snyderman? Zack Snyder is the...
Snyder. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Snyder. Who's Snyder?
He was the director, writer of like the first few shitty DC movies.
Okay.
So I think he wrote and directed Man of Steel, J-Rob, to give you a little...
I thought Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, which was the biggest garbage dump.
That movie, I could say, was absolute trash.
We can agree Batman vs. Superman wasn't a good movie. That's fine. We've had one thing we can agree on so far. We can build bridges now.
Yeah.
All right. Like, what did you like about the Justice League?
The characters were the characters. Superman came back and he was light and he came in and he did what he had to do. There wasn't a whole city being destroyed. There wasn't a shitty villain that came out of nowhere at the end. He was set up. I think they brought in characters pretty well. I kind of think that Cyborg was kind of shitty, but just the way he looked.
Did you have any doubt the whole movie that Superman wasn't coming back to life?
Oh no! I knew that he was coming back to life. I just wanted to see that it wasn't.
So
Spider Superman.
Right? The climax of this entire film that we're watching is we need to bring Superman back. You know from like the posters and the material, you know he's coming back. There's like not a shadow of a doubt in your mind. I don't know how the movie expected to keep your anticipation throughout all these, like knowing from the beginning of the movie that the climax is going to occur.
But that's not the climax. The climax was
fighting. David, are you saying when Superman was resurrected, he finally achieved like the ideal Superman sort of persona upon his rebirth?
Not that direct, like first bit where he was fighting against them, but when he comes in to fight Steppenwolf, when he comes in at the end there, when he has that race with the Flash at the end, that's so DC Comics.
Does race the Flash.
It was so, and Joss Whedon knew what to do. He knew how to direct a bunch of people like that. And you could tell which scenes were his and which one was Snyder's.
So what are people getting wrong, David? What are people getting wrong when they say this? When people will vehemently say this movie is objectively bad, what are they missing? What does David Freese see that the haters don't?
I think that it's more that I'm.
Maybe they weren't smart enough to realize the story that was being told. You know, it wasn't about the climax. It wasn't about, you know, where it was going to go. It was about man versus God.
Right.
And there was a constant struggle between
So was Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, until a god came in. That was
until Doomsday at the end.
He was a different kind of energy. Doomsday was an essence that was the true evil.
Right.
He represented something that was much greater than any concept of the struggle of man and God. And man and God had to stick together, form, to destroy this ultimate evil. It was like a way of forgiveness, you know, a way of like inner adjustment with your own faith to destroy the ultimate evil.
So like I can see like everything you're describing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but everything you're describing sounds cool to me. I like the idea of that overarching mythos, you know, that uses the DC lore. It's very fluent. It's very digestible. It's a tale as old as time, and people love that shit. Mm-hmm. But don't we have to be a little bit careful to make sure that just theme and lore don't triumph over substance? Because everything you're saying can be cool, but what if the character interactions were just lame? What if you never really felt like that god creature was a threat? Now, I didn't see the film, so I'm counting on you guys to kind of fill me in on that. You know,
it was
help me out here.
And I like schlock. I do. I like the Fast and the Furious movies. I just enjoy to turn my brain off and watch character interactions, and
that's car porn. Fast and Furious is car porn, and if you like car porn, I'm not gonna shame you.
You know what's funny? I feel like now you guys like it for two different reasons. I feel like David likes it because it's almost like for him the Fast and the Furious, where it's just like, hey, this is a fun movie. I'm just going to enjoy it. Whereas J-Rob, you actually gave me like the best explanation of what they were trying to achieve with that movie. Yeah, I just think the execution was horrific. I thought it was terrible. But that's what they were going for. And
I can respectfully say that you probably know more about this than I do, and so you had more occasions where you saw these characters interact on different levels, you know, and you probably have a bunch of other examples in which they could have interacted.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is why I really value David's opinion, because he's huge on the comics and the cartoons.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
It's just like when you see these characters interact, Superman was Superman, Batman was Batman, except he killed a bunch of people, but that's the Batman that we kind of like got from those movies.
True.
Wonder Woman was Wonder Woman, the Flash was the Flash. Who were they were supposed to be?
Wonder Woman was the best out of all of them.
I watched Age of Ultron, and then I watched Justice League on the same plane flight.
Those are two
I don't know.
disappointments, bro. That plane ride must have sucked.
Wow.
I watched,
I liked Age of Ultron too.
I know. I like Age of Ultron. I'm just being a jerk.
Marvel movies are fun.
I screwed up.
Yeah.
I watched Infinity War and then watched it. So I watched like my
Oh,
movie.
that's
And
why you must hate
That's
it.
not fair. That's not fair to do.
Yeah, that's not fair. Age of Ultron and Justice League sounds like a fair fight.
right.
Infinity War Justice League could not have been a fair fight.
It was an obliteration.
I honestly, I don't think you can really accurately compare the two. When it
Okay.
comes to the amount of time and like footage for one series and the amount of time and footage toward the other, and then making a climax for it, there's
Right.
I think you could compare it to
context.
the first one, though. I don't think you could compare it to an Infinity War because it's literally taking all these heroes from all these different movies. And I know the Avengers does that too, but they kept the circle small. And that was kind of like the Justice League too.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely did. I agree that the execution of that whole universe is ass backwards. Why would you have everyone come together and then do their own separate movies? Why would that? How does that make anyone care?
It's different. It's thinking outside the box, man.
I think, David, I really think it's because, unfortunately, and I think we're getting away from this now. But unfortunately, I think historically, I wouldn't even necessarily say this, but it's the people who are making those executive decisions are not the ones who dive into the source material and read it.
Right.
I mean, let's be real. Disney bought Star Wars and threw out the whole expanded universe. You know what I mean? There are executives who they don't have the passion for it that the fans do. And sometimes that works out, but most of the time it doesn't. That's why now you're starting to kind of see guys like Jon Favreau get into the mix because he really appreciates the source material and will make sure he knows the ins and outs of a universe's lore before contributing to it.
I agree. Now Jeff Johns is getting involved too. He's one of the most well-known DC writers.
Would you want to see Kevin Smith get involved?
I would, and I go back to one comic that I've read by him. He wrote Green Arrow back in the day, and he's the one that brought Oliver Queen back to life after he died in the 90s, which, by the way, every superhero died in the 90s. But he brought him back, and he did a pretty fucking good job, and I love Kevin Smith.
Cool.
I do. That Dogma, I think, is one of the coolest movies ever made.
I adore that film, dude. I adore
So
that film.
cerebral and so awesome.
So going back to the DC and moving away from this publisher house, when it comes to comics, do you think and it's just something I'm noticing in media in general, do you think we're in an age of decentralization, that things are breaking up? Because I feel like in many it's weird how the world works. Because where you have Amazon, where they're kind of monopolizing retail, when you look at things, media or anything, sort of digital entertainment, the exact opposite is true. Cable's never been weaker. There are people on YouTube, journalists covering the news, getting better ratings than main news networks. You're seeing complete decentralization in media, and it seems to not matter whether it's Hollywood, whether it's comic books, whether it's the news, no matter what it is, there seems to be, where there used to be a gate of entry, it's like that gate's been torn down. It seems like we're kind of working towards that. Would you agree?
I think so.
I think you're totally seeing decentralization take place because decentralization works. And I think that's why you're seeing it happen in so many different sectors. Now, what I mean is that just if you have different players all competing against each other, they will ideally give you the best outcome.
Yeah, Blizzard.
Spreading that out and not having 1 to 2 players like the industries have had. I just think this is something that every industry is realizing at once.
To be honest, I don't see it. So I'd be curious as to why you guys are agreeing with this, because I don't know. I feel like, with Disney Plus and Netflix and all these different conglomerates where everyone is sort of just plugging into this one network. I actually see the centralization of entertainment actually getting smaller.
And I think that's, and if I could be honest, I think that's because you're too attached to legacy media. I feel like you haven't jumped in, like when you realize how big the podcast world is and that there are more people listening to podcasts than watching Disney Plus, you know? And when you look at, like I brought it before, like everyone might be going to YouTube, but YouTube itself is broadcasting a bunch of different businesses and a bunch of different outlets.
Disney Plus is another example of decentralization, though. Like Disney Plus is another media group.
That's true. That broke off from Netflix. You're right.
Think about this as OTT, whatever, the streaming groups, and you used to have Netflix as the one, and then you started getting Hulu and these other players. Now everyone's coming out with one. You can't exist without an OTT.
But Disney Plus is ESPN. Disney Plus is
legacy media.
Channel. It's everything, man. It's Hulu. I mean, it's all the same company.
You own a lot of it, bro, for sure.
Uh-oh. I think we lost David.
Yeah. I see it. It's all the same company.
We'll get him in here.
Seems like a...
But I think you're looking at it with a really narrow lens, man. I feel like you're looking at it with a very narrow lens. I understand what you're saying. Disney is a huge media conglomerate, and they own a lot of the intellectual property. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of other media, alternative media, that doesn't need these sort of streaming platforms to exist.
Yeah, to be honest, after you said that earlier, I'm actually agreeing with you now. We're just reinforcing the older point. I think the reason why I don't see this is because I myself, only watch these mainstream sort of networks, and so I don't really plug into YouTube all that much or look into other sort of media sources.
So let me ask you: are you feeling really paranoid lately?
Me?
Yeah. I'm making a joke.
Yeah. No, no, I'm good.
No, bro. It's just like all right. The fact that your Instagram, right? If you started making videos on your Instagram, that you would be like your own TV network. That to me is just yet another form of this decentralization we're talking about, is that you have more options. Your time is your currency, what you're spending your time watching, and you're spending it in different places than you ever would have 20 years ago. You didn't have the option to go on Instagram and look at J-Rob or Landi Lodge or
Okay.
None of this was here.
I see what you're saying. I guess maybe I was just taking for granted the nature of cable, and how I saw each channel as separate from the next, and as not one network, but just a series of different plugins.
Mm-hmm.
There were 400, 500 channels, and with HD compatibility on top of that, with pay-per-view and this, that, and the other thing, all coming from different media sources. I think they've maybe simplified it a little bit more, but yet again, if you put in YouTube, of course, and all the other media sources, it sort of changes things. I think technology has developed to a certain point that I mean, I
think one thing that's really noteworthy is how much the barrier of entry has come down. Like what used to be really exclusive, like it used to be so hard. Like if you were a journalist, it used to be so hard to just work your way for 10 years to get onto like NBC and get your 3 minutes. When now it's like, well, I've got a 4K camera. I'll just film myself. I'll give my opinion, and it could blast out to everybody. Access to everybody. It's like the access is really what's decentralized everything.
And on a daily basis, these videos are being seen by more people than any of these TV shows we're talking about. Like we can look publicly the ratings of what the news gets, what like American Idol, sports, all of that.
Million views here, right?
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, way more podcast, so much, because everyone lives on their phone these days, man. And especially at home, it's like it's perpetuated to a level that it's hard to comprehend.
Without a doubt, us being in a society where this is a central factor makes a big difference.
I think we're getting our boy back.
It's great, yeah.
I think we're getting our boy back.
Oh, David Freeze has rejoined.
Here he is. Make sure to unmute yourself, my man.
Yeah, well, welcome back, Freeze.
He's connecting audio. You back, buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, please excuse my 2011 MacBook Pro. You're fucking up
Look,
on it.
it's
Oh,
bound to
man.
happen to one of us.
Almost
It's
a
all
decade.
good. Is your audio still recording?
It is not.
All right, let me know when you're recording, and we'll get a clap on you.
Decade of the Pro.
Damn,
So-
2011, man. That's probably the oldest living active Apple machine on the planet.
It might be. And
Like,
somehow
for
it's still
real.
fucking going all right.
Doesn't say much about Apple.
Wow, Apple's been sturdy for 10 years. That's pretty. Apple.
Yeah, right. Not bad.
Well, they did this. Things are meant to break these days.
The batteries are once you leave it in overnight charging, your battery's cooked. Once you do it once, it's done.
Yeah, I would never do that. That's just
Sometimes
bad.
it's an accident, man. You just have your phone plugged in. And you're like, oh, shoot, forgot to unplug it.
Yes, so.
Yeah,
yes.
dude, people just fall asleep. Like, it fucking happens.
Yeah, you fall asleep.
They got to fix that. I mean, that should have been priority number one. When making a computer or a laptop, like fix the fucking charger.
You wouldn't buy more as quick.
All I wanted.
Hey, you know what the funniest thing for me to watch is like, as somebody who's worked with like a lot of audio technology, bro, the plugs that plug in a microphone and the plugs that plug in your headphones have been the same for like 75 years. But
Mhm.
our phone charger cables just keep fucking changing.
I hear you.
So,
Do it on purpose, man.
I
Yeah.
may
Oh,
have an
totally.
issue.
Yeah.
What's
The
up, bud?
previous recording is gone.
That's fine. Look, we're just gonna hope that this doesn't delete at the end of it. For those of you listening, this is the first time we're doing a podcast like this. So if you hear it, consider it a miracle. All went well. David, just record as a backup,
Gotcha.
But otherwise we'll just keep rolling. So we were supposed to get some PlayStation 5 news, but we did hear some rumors, some that we can confirm, some that we can't. The
Okay.
first thing and probably most important is that it's going to be a solid state drive. And in litmus terms, that means no more loading times. Like, loading would be done. Now that we have a solid state drive, loading is going to be a thing of the fucking past. And I don't know how that's going to feel.
It's gonna feel old. We're gonna feel really old.
It's going to be harder to go back, right?
Oh, yeah.
I guess. Either way I see it is, I just think we're gonna think back on the old days and be like, there used to be loading times. There used to be start screens. You used to have to save your game.
Do you guys remember when video games didn't have like a dashboard where you had to select an app?
Yep.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh.
I feel like for me,
It does
Wow.
make me feel old.
for sure, bro. I feel so.
Remember memory cards?
Memory cards, man.
yes, there
Oh
you go.
God.
Absolutely, you got it.
Now we have hard drives.
Yeah, right. That are like in so
the
much
cloud.
bigger than any memory card ever was.
Yeah.
Dude, they're practically like fully functional PCs. Like, we're getting closer and closer to consoles just being computers.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I want that.
The Xbox 360 was basically built as a media entertainment unit as much as it was a gaming unit.
See,
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft confuses me a lot, right? Because like, anyone who's listening, if you play Xbox, my question is, why don't you just own a PC? Why are you buying an Xbox for like, $300 to $500 every X amount of years when you could just buy a really good gaming PC and literally play all the same games? Like, those companies like Halo and Gears, they release all their games. Those franchises, they release all their games for the PC. It's all Microsoft compatible.
It's because it comes with the keyboard.
No, I was gonna just say because kids aren't gonna be able to know to set up like a real gamer for sure. I agree with you, but like if you're getting your kids something for Christmas, this is all of that without any real setup. You just plug it in and go.
That's a good point.
Excellent point there, Joe.
That's just a
Genius.
generational thing. When the next generation comes, I mean, we're gonna be buying this shit. I have no doubt in my mind.
I'm excited. My problem is there haven't really been any games announced for the next gen. Like, there've been a few, but
Mhm.
nothing that gives me a boner.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man for the PS5.
Is that going to be a new game, or are they just remastering the last one?
No, they have a new game in development.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that's exciting news.
On the next gen platform.
Cool.
Spider-Man for
I
the
also-
PS4 was probably my favorite game in the past 5 years.
It was a very, very good game. One of my favorite combat systems. And I always love a
Story
game.
was amazing.
Absolutely. And I
And
was
when
just
you
gonna
have
say
the
the
gameplay and the
world
story, like what else do you want?
where for me, where it shined most, as much as I love the combat, was how amazing of a world explorer it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, as fun as it was to do the campaign, I really had a great time just swinging around, taking care of street crime, you know?
Yep.
Listen to J. Jonah Jameson just run his fucking mouth. It was just a good game to play. I really did enjoy it.
It immersed you. It really did.
Definitely. It makes you
Yeah,
really
it's agree.
feel like Spider-Man.
True.
I'm really excited for. I just saw the preview for Final Fantasy 16.
What are you
Oh,
talking about?
What?
Dude, there's a preview for Final Fantasy 16.
Wait.
it's
I'm going to
fucking
fucking kill you.
incredible.
You've got me so fucking excited right now that if you're lying, I'm going to fucking kill you
No,
the next time
I'm
I
not
see
at
you.
all. And I'm telling you, it's one of the sexiest things you'll ever see. It's
Oh, I know
awesome.
what you saw. Wait.
What, with the mannequin people.
J-Rob, that came out like 3 years ago, and it was like a
Well,
joke.
I
It
saw
wasn't
it.
real.
I saw it 2 days ago, and I thought it was fucking great.
All right, so you were
That's
naive. You weren't just fucking with me. Okay. I almost dude. I can't even tell you. I don't know what this says about me, but like I'm sweating now because you got me excited.
I mean, you love Final Fantasy to the point that you got a side podcast about it, so that's understandable.
Yeah,
No, it's been one of my favorites growing up. Oh,
Wow.
Jesus.
They
I had a
fooled me.
fucking heart attack. But no, isn't that a cool fucking like teaser though? It's not even a
Yeah,
teaser. Square Enix didn't make it,
Yeah.
but it looked really cool. I would play it if it was a game.
Mhm. Me too.
Yeah, man. Look, I really think if you guys can recall, I'd be interested in what you think about this. That GameCube, PS2, Xbox era is really kind of known as a golden age. Like that's when games evolved the most. That's when their quality really stepped up, and that's when it really became a really good storytelling medium. You could think of some games that came out around that time, whether it was Gears of War, or whether it was Halo, or whether it was Metal Gear Solid games, or whether it was Twilight Princess. You know, there's stories had such capacity in that generation, and gameplay and graphics had evolved from like polygons that it blew everyone's mind. A lot of people think if we're not already in the middle of it, we're at the beginning of that next sort of leap into the next stage. I don't know how you guys feel
What are you
about
thinking right now? I agree with Nick, but your face just looks like you're not having it.
that. Who?
Joe.
Joe.
I I got a lot to say about it. I
Yeah,
completely.
please. I want to hear. Look at your face. Was just like, this is it.
No, he was kind of like boiling a little.
Yeah, he's
bit.
like ready to go.
Boiling. I don't boil.
It's a good boil, bro. It's like you're boiling tea. You're not gonna like
Boil,
explode.
I want to hear.
Tea, I like that. That's a good. Anyway, I think it's so true what you're saying because there's no. It's like if you look at the Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1 era, and then you just transcend to where games went, that next jump. I think in almost every genre, there's a significant jump. Whereas I don't know that you could really say that from the PS2, Xbox, Nintendo 64, I mean GameCube to the next generation.
No, there wasn't a big leap. There wasn't that big of a leap. Same between this, like, at least at the end of this console cycle, we're starting to see it. Like, because at the beginning of the PS4's console cycle, that wasn't really the case.
Yeah.
I think what Nick was trying to make was that it was content based. You know, when it came down to like going to the PS1, Nintendo 64 generation, that was all about the gameplay. That was about, the fact that you're no longer on a 2D screen, but you're on a 3-dimensional world where you can like run around. Then all of a sudden, Ocarina of Time turned into Twilight Princess, where the amount of content involved was just insurmountable. The amount of detail in every single little like character. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Ocarina of Time for that very reason that you just had. The fact that it was not a 2D venture, it was revolutionary. But when it comes down to the story that was being told, the degree in which you felt it, I think the gap between PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 really did that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way of putting it, and you're 100% right, because if you look at older games, they kind of relied on their subtext to tell the story, you know, because the game had to primarily be a game and there wasn't a lot of room for voice acting or dialogue, or there just wasn't even a budget for a game to be that expansive. But because that 3D generation was so huge and so profitable, the amount of money, time, effort, and love that went into video games just completely exploded.
How could I not think of the budget? That wasn't even part of my argument. But when you consider how much the budget increased, so many people. But I want to see what the most bought systems of all time are, kind of to see where this generation.
I know number one
PlayStation
is PS2.
2. PlayStation 2 is number one. Will probably be number one forever.
That's what I'm saying.
Everyone had a PS2.
All-time high.
Well, dude, it was a At
Even
the end
when
of
you
the
didn't
day,
have PS2, you bought the skinny one.
yeah, the PS2 Slim. And at the end of the day, the way a console ages is completely dependent upon its catalog. That's why the Wii U, as much as I love Nintendo, belongs in the trash bin. There's just not a good catalog in there. There are some hidden gems like Bayonetta and the Wind Waker HD remake and Smash.
And
Sure, the gems are there, but the overall catalog is just weak as hell. The PS2 catalog, to this day, is the strongest catalog any system has ever had.
I think it was so
I
strong
think
that
that's
the gap
also
between
from like the sheer amount of games.
Quantity, the quantity
Right.
and the quality was there.
Yeah, I think it was so good that the gap between PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 was just really disappointing. I didn't really think it was a better system. To be honest, I haven't seen a better quality since PlayStation 4.
No, I agree. I actually think Sony kind of shit the bed on the PS3 a little bit.
Without a doubt, yeah.
You know, but the PS4 potentially has a better catalog than PS2, but we won't know that until it's aged as much as PS2 has, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't say that just because at this point we haven't, had enough time with it. But
Exactly. We have to see how those games age. But
still,
it's exciting
the fact
stuff.
that it's PlayStation and not Nintendo at that top spot is still baffling to me.
Well, you guys know Nintendo created Sony, at least as a video game company. The N64 was supposed to have discs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had a partnership with Sony, and then they bailed out on the partnership halfway to do cartridges, and Sony was like, well, you know what? We have the technology. Here we come.
We can do it.
And they didn't kill Nintendo. Nintendo and Sony now go head-to-head, but they fucking killed Sega. Sony killed fucking Sega.
It did. That Dreamcast was like...
Which, in its own right, was a revolutionary system.
Yeah. It was that first one to use the discs.
Yep.
I'll say this, though, Nintendo's so good at seeping into the culture. That Animal Crossing thing, once we all got locked inside, there was not a person I knew who wasn't talking about Animal Crossing.
Dude,
it wasn't planned, but yeah, they did a good job.
That's what, but
I didn't play it. I still haven't played it.
I know they planned the thing that made everyone have enough time to play Animal Crossing all day, but how playable Animal Crossing is enabled everyone to be talking about it. If it was a shitty game, everyone wouldn't have just like latched on.
Well, I think what makes Nintendo so appealing is they have these games where if you're like a quote unquote gaming veteran and you're looking for a challenge and you're looking to be in an expansive world, they have games like that for you. You know, Legend of Zelda games are the perfect example. But at the same time, they also have these games like Animal Crossing and Mario Kart that are just so unintimidating for newcomers or for kids or for people who just haven't ever really played video games and want to try it. Nintendo is just like a very welcoming experience. It's like you could be such a beginner, and like Wii Sports came with the Wii. You know what I'm trying to say? Like they know what they are.
Oh, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm kind of pissed there wasn't a Switch Sports. I know they had 1-2 Switch, but we really needed the Wii Sports remaster on the Switch.
There's still time.
You're still doing,
Yeah. One of these days, I'm sure they'll pump something out. You know, like check out this AR version.
Well, aren't they releasing all of the Marios now? Isn't that like
that's a rumor?
Remastering? That's a rumor,
and I hope it's true. I
would love to.
I bet. Let me tell you something.
Remastered Super Mario 64, I'd die.
You know which one would get me? Super Mario RPG.
Oh, bro,
It's-
me and your brother were playing that for a while.
Dude, I really wish Nintendo and Square Enix would do more work together. I really,
Fun.
it's so much fun. I think that's where Toadette was introduced. Like it's just so much fun. And playing with Bowser on your team, like
So
Bowser
good.
being a party member feels so good.
Oh,
One of the gang now.
Exactly. It was so.
I'm gonna face a higher threat.
Yeah.
If they dropped like even if they weren't remastered, if Nintendo allowed you to play Mario Kart, Mario Party, and made them playable online that you could just download, people would go wild. I'd be playing Mario Party every night. Like if I could call my Switch, play the old one, and play my friends online. Nintendo.
Oh, you mean like port the N64 Mario parties to the Switch so
Yeah.
that theoretically the four of us could play it right now.
Yeah, I
The
play
only-
it. Yeah, it would
The
go.
only
wild.
issue I would see with the N64 ones would be that controller, and it was so based around that. You know what I mean?
That's true.
I agree, but it's not like you could do it with like things like GameCube first of all, because like you have
Right.
a Connect GameCube, and even the controller won't be exact, and you'll say it's not the same. I would play Mario Party with Nintendo Switch controllers, even if
Oh, I wouldn't. Yeah.
like even if it's not exact.
But I think what David's getting at is the porting process, like porting it from the N64 to the Switch is going to be a little bit tough because all those mini games are based around the awkward nuances of an N64
Exactly.
controller.
Ooh, yeah, it'd be tough to program the awkward.
You're right. It's all those different mini games that would just be like.
Well, I'll tell you this, we won't get blisters anymore from doing this
Oh,
because now they put a
fuck.
cushion on top of the joystick.
Even if you did it with the GameCube games, I'd be playing Mario Party and Mario Kart every night.
Oh yeah.
Yo, a Double Dash remaster would make me like come in my pants.
That was such a classic game.
That was so much fun.
yeah. I'm actually looking forward to what they do with the new technology that's coming through. You know, they could just remaster it, you know, and do something where like how they did with Final Fantasy VII remake.
Just
know,
make a
and just
whole new game, but
Oh, yeah.
Make a
But
whole
that's
new
like a
game
that's like a full-on remake. Like they remade that from the ground up.
100%. And I'm saying doing this, but making it for the new system. You know, imply the different mini games, but just with different actions. Actions that imply actually like throwing the shell off of the the goggles and where you're at, and trying to hit the person next to you, while you're driving. While the other person's like actually in the field going around.
Yeah, a Mario Kart VR would be relatively easy in terms of what VR is today, where it's really just your field of vision.
Even Mario Party, you can do that too. As long as you're in your place and you have different things that you're doing around you, you can do a wide variety of things. Just pumping up, the thing, the mini game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those mini games where you have to like pump up a balloon or some shit.
Yeah, all those things where you're just pressing A and B, they could just be different actions for the new system.
I think it's
Are you-
VR though, because it's like the place. If someone were to ask me how should I try VR, I think then the easiest ways to do it is to get PlayStation right now and use the PlayStation VR. I think they made it the most accessible. So it's like Nintendo needs to get on that. Is really my point with all this.
Absolutely not. Nintendo's made it clear they're not doing it.
I'm fine with that.
Nintendo has made statements that they are not interested in pursuing VR right now. They're like, it's not their game. I think they're much more interested in AR. I think augmented reality is what they're more interested in.
With the success of Pokemon Go, who could blame them?
Right.
Exactly.
You have a screen in front of you. There are things you can do.
That's why I hated Pokemon Go sometimes, is because I was like, yo, if I had some kind of goggles or something where I could like not have to hold this piece of phone in front of me while I'm playing Pokemon.
Right.
So cool. If I could just like throw some virtual ball, that'd be so fun. Me having to like flick every 5 seconds is eventually why I got off.
That's why I don't play the Let's Go games anymore either. When was the last time you picked up, for anyone who played Pokemon, Let's Go Pikachu Eevee? When was the last time you picked that up?
I wish I played that game.
I'm glad I played that game,
Yeah.
but I'm with David where it's like, put it down, never picked it back up.
Like, why? You know what I mean?
There's nothing
You have to
compelling.
throw the thing. I don't know. At the TV, it was all fucked up, and And if it
But you
wasn't
got to
that,
ride a
then-
Charizard, David.
Whoa.
Yeah,
You got to ride a
lot,
Charizard.
a lot of cool features in that game, but
Well,
No.
did you know, like, the reason why Let's Go, as fun as it was, right, was really such like a half-ass game was because not Nintendo, Game
Game
Freak
Freak.
thought the Switch was going to fail.
Yep.
So they're like, all right, just make some carbon copy game. And this is where Sword and Shield got in trouble because, at least my understanding, last I looked into it, when they began development for Sword and Shield, they envisioned it as a mobile game, like on your phone.
Wow.
So that's why the graphics look like the Wii. That's why they didn't really step up any of the gameplay or aesthetic. It was, with no pun intended, they were trying to kind of phone it in.
yeah.
Wow,
Say that.
I didn't know that.
And
Yeah,
you
but
know
then the
what?
Switch was
It
such a
shows.
success. They were like, fuck.
Yeah, like
It
this
shows that it was half-assed. It really does.
I'll tell you
When you think about the potential of a Switch Pokemon game between what we got and what could have been, it's upsetting. It really is.
Sword and Shield did not meet where our imaginations had been taking us. I'll say this. I had more fun playing Sword and Shield than Sun and Moon. I enjoyed that experience more. I think the wild area is one of their best innovations. They should really just lean into that as much as you can. Get us off the rails. Let us control the camera. Lean into that. But the campaign was lame. You know, the post game gets old after a while.
I like the campaign only because it brought like the gyms to like center attention. Everything with the
Yes.
chairman sucked.
Yeah, I agree. That's where I'm agreeing with you. When we got to meet all the gym leaders, I'll say this: the designs for the gym leaders and the Pokemon, I
Mhm.
thought was the best in a long time.
Yeah, I think best since Gen 4.
You know, and like that's where I'm like, this sucks because in some ways they actually knocked it out of the park, but in too many ways they really dropped the ball.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't need this to look like Uncharted 4. We didn't need this to look like fucking Final Fantasy 7. Just make it look
make it sharp.
better. Sharp. That's a good way of putting it. It could look cartoony.
Sharp.
There's nothing wrong with it looking
make
cartoony.
the animations more lively, make things like kind of look livid in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bring the world to life, you know?
I can actually speak to this. I started writing a Dungeons and Dragons version of Pokemon.
Yes.
Yes, you mentioned that.
I've gotten quite far, and I'm telling you what, there is so much you can do in this world. It's unbelievable.
I want.
Are you right? Are you like trying to write it and be a dungeon master? Because I
So,
would definitely
yes,
play your campaign.
Yeah,
I have a game already set up. You got a group of 3 people, we can get it. I've got 2 groups going right now, currently. I've written up to Saffron City, and I'm telling you everything from like fusing your Pokemon to like mega evolutions to daycare centers to Pokemon contests.
J-Rob, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What have you stumbled upon that Game Freak hasn't? Well, like what give me like 2 or 3 things that you found you could do in the Pokemon world that Game Freak hasn't done yet.
Okay. So one thing that I found was pretty interesting is that the characters are dynamic. So as you're speaking to them, like your character is then speaking through, and so different scenarios can happen as you're speaking to the. So you for example, you could join Team Rocket.
I mean, Jared, let me be clear.
You know,
Because we know how Dungeons and Dragons works. What I'm asking is, what have you added to the Pokemon universe that's unique to you?
okay. For example, I created an item called a electro charger, you know, or like a power cable, right? And you can charge your Pokemon and in an outlet in like a house or something, or at the Pokemon Center, and the charge stays for 10 minutes, and your first electric move does double damage,
That's cool.
and then the charge expends.
So let's say I was playing Pokemon Blue in your Dungeon Master universe.
Mhm.
I would go to the Pokemon Center, plug my Pikachu in, and then sprint right into the Cerulean Gym and fight Misty before that 10 minutes runs out.
And you would have one move, and then the charge would be expend. Your first Thunder Shock, it does double damage, and then your other Thunder Shocks do the same amount of damage that it would do any other time.
it's almost
Gotcha.
So it's got to be strategic.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of different things, and this I actually got from the show because in when Pikachu was facing Brock beforehand. They went to the energy factory and and
they rode like the bikes and stuff. Yeah,
bicycle to charge up his Pokemon. And then he used his a great, flash or this attack, and he wound up winning.
Can we set up like us four do a thing?
I would love to. It'd have to be a little spaced out, maybe like every other week, but I could definitely make time for it.
Yeah, whatever you guys want, no problem. I've also taken real life sort of scenarios, like for example, like Cerulean City, Vermilion City, where Lieutenant Surge is, right? I turned it into like a fishing village, so everything is like cold and damp, and and there's workers, who are all musty going to work back at the yard and back, and some are fishing, and it's a very quiet town.
I like that.
And that's right next to Lavender Town, which is like fucking creepy as hell. I'm telling you, I threw in some really good hands.
Give us some of that. Give us some of that. Tell me a little about Lavender Town.
Okay. So essentially, I made the Lavender Tower, right, be like the primary sort of focus. Because you have to go up and reach and meet Mr. Fuji, because he's now doing some sort of memorial for the Cubone's mother, the Marowak. I wanted to get some synchronicity with that. Well, there are some people in Team Rocket with the Sylph Scope who are going around and trying to who are disturbing sort of the grounds there. And while you're in the house, you hear different ghost encounters or different things. How about I read a little bit of an intro to the tower?
Yeah, sure. Give us an excerpt.
So the way I see it, actually, we could play a good 5 minutes, and you guys could get an idea.
I don't think we should do that right now while we're recording, but if you wanted to read an excerpt, J-Rob, I think that'd be great.
Yeah,
read that excerpt.
I don't think I'm not going to build a whole character sheet mid-podcast here.
Yeah, no problem.
He's ready to go.
No, I'm not talking about character sheet. I'm talking about All right, so here's Lavender Town.
Pokey D&D.
Sorry, I get excited. The stillness of the air seems to suck even the sound of your footsteps into the nothingness of Pokemon Tower that shadows the town. Even the trees seem not to rustle, as if they are tense with nerves for what is about to come. You could describe it as creepy, but eerie is closer to it. It isn't just that it is a still day. It's the air. It simply doesn't move. The leafy avenue is bereft of noise, as if every murmur and rustle has been stolen away. The sky is empty, not just the birds, but the clouds also. There is no weather at all. Even the sunlight feels cold. And then
wow.
Beautiful, dude.
Wow, man.
Painted a word picture.
Yep, that's the idea.
You know exactly what you're going into. Wow.
So you get the Pokemon Tower, and he goes, everyone knows the Pokemon Tower was haunted. It is run as a cemetery, and its statues brings ghost hunters from all around the world to sleep in the catacombs on each level. There is no running water or electricity, and the windows are single pane. But other than that, it is in good repair for a tower of its era. You hear cackles and giggles from inside the tower. And then you guys enter the tower, and it says, each setting before you casts each gravestone in a nostalgic hue. Unlike the bones that are mostly gone, the stone have weathered slowly. Only their lettering shows in the sign of passing time. A young woman is found walking the path at a nearby stone. She touches each stone as she passes them, as if trying to sense where her own heart is buried. Kneeling before a grave that's been cold for many years, resting her eyes on the stone that gave a notion of permanence to what is always fleeting, always just passing through. Thank you, but I prefer to be alone, she says when you walk up to her. In the center of the room stands a banister was a twirl of a branch, tamed by a carpenter's hand. The grain flows as water might, waves of comforting browns, under the lamp shine that hangs from each interface. It was a nature's art, something that soothed right to the soul. And that's only the first floor. I can keep going if you guys want.
I fucking love it, but I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
So how do you handle, how do I put it? I'm loving this Lavender Town so much I have to ask you, How possible is it for Pokemon to die in your universe?
Very possible. When their health is reached by double, then they die completely.
Wait, say that again.
So, for example, if your Caterpie has 12 health, right, and you put him up against like a Pokemon that he should not be up against, and he hits him for 24 damage, that
this is what I'm fishing for.
done.
I'm like, what's J-Rob adding to the equation that makes things a little more interesting and risky? I like this.
Dude, there's so much going on. It's like there's so many details. It's really hard for me to just like throw some out there because I also, I know what I know.
Well, let me ask you,
Yeah.
what sort of challenges do you present when it comes to running from a battle?
So essentially, you all have to do a dex throw based off the Pokemon's dex roll. So, for example, they roll a dex and they have a +3 to their dex. They get like a 15, right? If you roll a 12, if Joe rolls an 18, and let's say David rolls a 12, right? The two 12s are lower than the 15. The 118 is, but you don't have the majority, so you guys don't run away.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
That's intuitive.
Okay.
I like that. I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed a trend, at least in RPGs and JRPGs.
Mhm.
I feel like because like, first of all, let me preface this. Let's turn this back. Let me preface this. You know who some of my favorite human beings are?
Sure.
They're the people who love RPGs and JRPGs, but then say, nah, Dungeons and Dragons is too nerdy. And it's like, motherfucker, Dungeons and Dragons paved the way so that these RPGs and JRPGs could exist.
Mhm.
And I've noticed a trend that at least lately, that RPGs and JRPGs are getting quite better, that the final boss in one way or another always seems to be the dungeon master. You know, that trope of, oh, it was God the whole time. You know, I'm starting to see that trope that in many ways for RPGs, your final boss is a dungeon master.
I feel like I've found that the
Extent, yeah.
people who find Dungeons and Dragons too nerdy have also not played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
Also true.
Yeah, like I feel like they're not very well versed in the thing that they think is nerdy and have this perception of it.
Right. They have no idea.
Yeah, and I've heard that before I even played, and then I played it a couple of times. And I was like, oh, this is really fun.
I never played it that many times, but I always had a fucking blast.
You know what introduced me to it was actually an episode of Dexter's Lab where he's playing with his friends and he's the dungeon master, but he's so smart that he's just outwitting all of his friends and just being a total dick of a dungeon master.
Oh yeah. And speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, gotta say, Community, one of the best examples of Dungeons and Dragons. They did that so fucking well.
Well, because you know what it comes down to, dude? It's like the game is as good as the players who get into it.
Yep.
Like, the more you get into it and allow yourself to be immersed, the more fun it is.
It flows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's not
episode,
about beating the game. It's about being your character.
that episode to me really symbolizes what Community lost when Chevy Chase left, because he's such a good heel on that episode. He's such a good villain.
Oh yeah.
Such what's the Fat Neil.
And
The whole episode, and you really want Fat Neil to beat him, and when you get the payoff and he beats him, you're just like, oh my god, yeah. It's my favorite. I love it.
Cool.
that show is that show is genius.
You know, I wish that show got the love it deserved from its network because it had to stumble its way to the finish line, and it was still quality at the end, but it didn't, like, the last 3 seasons didn't capture what the first 3 did. And I love that fucking show. I'll watch every episode with joy, but I really wish NBC backed it as much as they did, say, Parks and Rec.
Yeah. Well, it just didn't have the viewership that the others did.
Yeah, because it was a very Dan Harmon, even though like Rick and Morty's relatively mainstream now, like Dan Harmon, at least back then, had a very sort of niche sort of flavor to his creations.
And also on top of that, he got people like the fucking Russo brothers to come in and do fucking shows. I don't know. It's very interesting.
He also, at least with Community, had an incredible cast. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not one who usually gives a shit about actors, but like everyone who played a part in Community was brilliant.
Everyone.
The
Like
chemistry was just there.
absolutely.
They started a podcast.
Yeah, Ken Jeong and
It's called
Joe
The
McHale.
Darkest Timeline.
It's freaking great.
Yeah.
And it's funny too. I've
They
loved it.
talk about behind the scenes shit. Did you watch the table read
Oh
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
did?
I saw they
all
did that
show up
table
most
read, but I
of
haven't
the
seen
time,
it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then they did an episode with the cast of the podcast.
And you know, that's how you know 6 seasons in a movie is real.
Oh yeah, it's happening.
Well, it's funny because
They love it. They love what they do.
participate, and they did the Pierce's Dead episode as the table read because Chevy Chase still won't come back and be.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the majority of that episode happens with them just sitting at the table.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's easy to
Which
do.
honestly, that must have helped them so much because when they did table reads, they probably just did it on set at that table where
Right.
the scene was happening anyway.
Probably. Yeah, it's not much to do. You know, it's not a lot of things going around.
Well, I was watching. I'm watching Breaking Bad now with my boyfriend Lou,
Yeah.
and oh my god, I've seen it before. He hasn't.
Oh, okay. I was going to say David.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, I've seen it. And I get it, that one episode with the fly. There's your bottle episode.
Don't you love that episode? I
Oh,
feel like
it's amazing.
some people give that episode shit. I
No,
He
fucking
I
love
hated it. He was like, "Oh, it's so boring. They're only in this one place." I'm like, "No, but like subtext and like interactions and like,
There's more going on there.
oh my god, is he gonna tell Jesse that he basically let Jane die? Come on!"
Mm-hmm.
Bro.
Agreed.
That show that's a show that still holds up. I don't know if anyone's watching Better Call Saul. I'm not, but apparently it measures up to Breaking Bad.
I heard it measures. I haven't watched it.
I've heard that once like Gus and Mike come in, that's when it really like goes, because like I watched season 1 and season 2, and it's him as like this Jimmy McGill, which was his regular name, like original, and it's a lot to do with his brother and stuff, and I was not a fan of that.
What do you guys
People
think of El
take it
Camino?
better.
What's up?
What do you guys think of El Camino?
I haven't
liked it
seen
a
El
lot.
Camino.
Get to
Check
it.
it out. It's good. It's a movie. Post.
I keep forgetting, bro. There's
Dead.
just so much shit, man. And I say that as a good thing.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
There's just so much, man.
It's
I know.
fucking
And it's
quality.
all good. Everyone's loving it. So
Actually, who was I talking to that didn't like it? My parents really didn't like it. I was like, what did you have to not like? It was a basic continuation of the thing, and I kind of liked that. You know, Jesse got what.
Speaking
Yeah.
of
it
which,
wasn't shot like Breaking Bad. It was a different movie, but
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
J-Rob, do you remember Badger, the character Badger from Breaking Bad?
Badger. You mean which? You're gonna have to give me a face.
He was one of Jesse's friends. He was one of the goons.
The one with the voice.
Oh yeah. 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 What about him?
Did you notice that he's the voice of Wedge in Final Fantasy VII?
Holy shit. He is. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I didn't
dude.
Yeah.
And did
Cool.
shit. And did you know Heidegger is Bender? John DiMaggio?
I did recognize a voice. I think I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about.
he's Bender and Jake the dog from Adventure Time.
I got that. And the guy who is like the rodeo person that in the town where
Chocobo Sam?
Chocobo Sam.
Fucking love Chocobo Sam.
Yeah, the guy who has.
Wait, there's a character named Chocobo Sam.
Oh, you got to know the trio. You've got Chocobo Sam,
Mhm.
Madam M, and Andrea Rodea.
Oh Jesus!
Chocobo Sam. It was the same voice actor as the guy who did the dude.
That wasn't
Big
Jeff
Lebowski.
Bridges.
The Big Lebowski. No, not
No,
him.
Chocobo
No, not
Sam
him.
was
Not
not.
him. Not the guy that narrated it.
Oh, him. No way. I'm gonna
Tim
look that up.
Elliott?
Yeah. he
No
was in it.
way.
I would recognize his voice anywhere. I'm telling
Jared,
you.
I'll give you this. It definitely sounds like him. I just don't know if they would
I
pay
know for a
him.
fact.
Look, he's
I would bet money on it. It's like-
wow.
yeah, look it up. I'm curious.
I'll look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
Nah, Chocobo Sam's the fucking man. Goddamn
Yeah,
goat.
cool. Yeah. I want to get like an audio too and just get the playback.
No, because you're right, dude. It sounds just like him.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds just like that guy. He was in Parks and Rec too. I forgot.
Yeah,
I forgot
yeah, he was the other Ron.
the other Ron. Yeah.
Clever.
1 second. Let me see if I can fix
Yeah,
this
no
up
problem.
here.
But yeah, voice acting is always pretty particular.
No. The English voice actor's name is Larry Davis.
Oh yeah.
I thought you were about to say Larry David.
All
I
right.
was
You were,
like,
now
what?
that would be a whole other thing.
So, you know, we're in this town. Everyone sucks.
Oh, Jesus
But I'm doing
Christ.
pretty good.
That would be wild.
Mhm.
That would be wild.
That was a show I ran through during this quarantine.
Oh, Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Fucking hysterical show. If you don't watch that, like, you should binge that fucking show.
Yeah.
You know what, Charlotte and I have been watching Avatar. I'm on book 3 right now.
Nice.
And it's starting to get really good. Like, not that book 1 and book 2 weren't good. They were
Have you
fucking
ever watched it
great.
before?
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. So now book 3 is starting to ramp up. I'm like, oh.
I wish I could talk to you about it. That sucks.
You guys,
What?
no guys should check out. I'm telling you, it's really good. It's like The Office. Black
What they
AF.
do in the shadows?
It's called
No.
Black AF. Hashtag Black AF. It's brilliant.
Cool.
Like,
It's a
oh,
show?
yeah, no, I've seen
Yeah,
that.
check it out on Netflix. It's so good. It had me laughing throughout the entire thing. It's like this that famous he's a director. His daughter is doing like this thing for I forgot the school that she's going to, but she was like directing the whole like series, all like 10 episodes.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. I love it.
Well, you know, Gerald, I'm still fucking sweating from your Final Fantasy 16 announcement. Just want you to
sorry
know
about
that.
I had me fooled. To that moment, I completely thought it was real.
No, I know what you're talking about, and it looks really fucking good.
Yeah. After playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, I would not put it past them with that good of graphics.
Oh, yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this, but they did a data dive into some of the old Pokemon games, and they found that they were programmed to spawn less Pokemon on tragic anniversaries, like 9/11, for example.
What?
Isn't that wild?
Weird, because it's like I almost want a list of the days that the Pokemon creators deemed important enough that we need to specifically program low Pokemon days here.
Yeah, let me pull up the article. I think they actually do have a list of what days in our old Pokemon games less monsters were spawned. And you know what I don't like about that? Let me tell you what I don't like about that. Okay, on the anniversary of 9/11 for an 11-year-old, I need as many Pokemon as possible. Okay?
Not in goddamn fucking Dark Cave or fucking
Imagine it's just like a sad
Good point.
day. You're
fucking
searching.
Zubats. God, it's a bad day and you got like 5 Zubats. You take 2 steps.
No, there's just so many Zubats in those games.
Yo, I don't know why this made me think of that, but you guys see they're remaking Tony Hawk?
Yeah, I saw that.
All right.
Fucking crazy. That's the thing, though. Here's the thing, and this is what I think will be interesting. And J-Rob, I think this is going to work out for people like you and me, because I think the word remake is going to start changing. If Nintendo is ever to remake Ocarina of Time again, they can't just update the graphics. They can't.
They gotta like fully, totally remake it.
They have to do it now, or else everyone's going to be like, well, this isn't what we wanted. We wanted it to be like the expansive thing it can be now.
Right, it's not a remake. That's like
No more
a
cheating.
update.
Remaster,
Remaster.
refurbish.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right, so I've got the website pulled up now. I'm going to pull this up and see if I can get a list for you guys. Okay, so the one they did the deep dive into was Diamond and Pearl.
Which I'm playing Platinum, by the way. I'm almost done. Single hardest Pokemon game.
Pokemon developer Junichi Masuda's birthday, which lands on January 12th, for instance, any eggs you try to hatch will grow 10% quicker than usual.
That's funny.
It's funny.
Oh, goddamn. But let me see what else I got here. On holidays like 4th of July and St. Patrick's Day, the games increase monster encounter by 5%.
Okay, well that's good.
So on on happy holidays, they seem to boost it. Yeah, on the Hiroshima bombings and 9/11, they spawn fewer.
Yo.
Like here, hold on, I'll be able to show you guys. Actually, here's the list and here's the code. I don't know if you can see it.
Hard to see it on the way.
Already coming
no, I
focus.
see it.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah. What's
Interesting.
Equinox? What?
Yeah,
That's
decrease it by 10%. How fucking wild is that?
on January 1st?
Oh, I literally just left the article.
Oh, no worries. But I thought I saw that first.
I did see January 1st, yeah.
Yeah. So that's crazy though. But I don't. It's weird. It's like you're keeping on the sad days. You have to be almost more sad, and on the happy days you have to be more happy.
It's a tribute.
But then again, if you think of it like David, now that you have this information, 9/11's the best day to go into the dark caves.
Oh yeah.
And if
Evil.
you're shiny hunting, 4th of July is the best day. It's what you do with the information that
There you
matters.
go. That's the whole thing with Pokemon.
Pokemon.
That's the thing. That is the thing. While we'll rip on Pokemon, and even though it's like a base level turn-based combat sort of deal, dude, like that whole Eevee and Ivy thing, like there are complexities to Pokemon's leveling system that most people really can't even wrap their head around. I see J-Rob shaking his head.
You have
So-
no idea what can become from this. I mean, like from the Pokemon that I have in this game, there's like climbing speeds where you can like go up a tree. You know, you can fly to a certain level, and
That's
swoop
cool.
down and attack, and like different ways of navigating your Pokemon. They have tremor sense. One has like night sense where they can see in the dark. You know, they've taken all the qualities of Pokemon. They have different like things like
You
they have
you
sunlight.
gave me a brilliant idea, J-Rob. Something that's been introduced in Pokemon for some reason,
qualities. Yeah.
like selectively, is sometimes your Pokemon can travel outside of the Pokeball with you. And what you just fucking sparked in my brain was you mentioned all these different Pokemon that had different sort of explorer advantages or explorer properties. So it makes you think that like if they really wanted to up the exploration into the Pokemon world, you would have the Pokemon outside of your Pokeball provide certain advantages. And they do that to an extent when you use Surf and stuff, but imagine it was needed at a more constant rate as opposed to
Right.
selective rate.
Exactly. Like you're falling off a cliff and all of a sudden your Bulbasaur throws a Vine Whip and you grab it and he grabs you.
And this is some of the things the show actually
You know what I mean?
does. I
Right.
feel like they really could just take what happens in the show and try to incorporate it in some kind of game element.
Which, by the way, the new anime, top notch.
Really?
Really is.
Is it on Netflix? Is it that one you're talking
It's
about?
coming. It's coming on Netflix. I think a couple of the dubs have leaked,
Oh,
but
okay.
it's on hiatus now because of fucking COVID-19.
Okay, I've been doing a lot of research, so I mean, I'll welcome it.
Yeah, check it out. I highly
I'm watching
recommend
the
it.
Indigo League right now, and it's giving me a whole bunch of ideas.
We have and the Digimon anime too, which has been fucking amazing.
I never got into Digimon. I gotta be
Ah,
honest. I
dude.
never got into it.
First like 3-4 seasons, and I'm with you. As a kid, I would love that, but then I fell off.
The new anime, it's like a reboot of the original, and I'm telling you, you don't need to know anything about it. Just watch it. 3 episodes are out right now, and it's like the opening arc. The
Where is it?
animation, the storytelling.
Is
Everything-
this the Digimon or Pokemon anime?
This is Digimon.
Digimon, okay.
I would say watch that before the Pokemon. Even though Pokemon is great, Digimon is unreal. To the point of like you see people like, and I don't give any shit to like lists and shit, but most anticipated anime is Digimon.
Digimon's kind of making a comeback right now, from my notice.
Yeah.
Like they just made a great game that just came out.
Well,
Oh
you
yeah,
know-
Cyber Sleuth was great.
You know what the truth
Yeah.
is, and I think one of the reasons is because like the world of Digimon is much more realistic and possible
Yeah.
than a world of Pokemon.
It takes
like-
place in Tokyo, in Japan.
Yeah, and I think,
reference going to like other countries and
and if I'm not mistaken, right, like it's Digimon digital monsters. Like the monsters are data. They're literally data, right?
Mhm.
Like we're almost there.
yeah.
Yeah,
don't
they're gonna
get me
incorporate it.
there. Don't
With
bring-
some augmented reality advancements, we could be there.
I'd love to have a fucking
Matter of
Digimon on my own.
Yeah.
You're so right. It's a wild ride, homies. It's kind of like I could totally see it too. It's like the plot of Digimon is literally a bunch of kids messing around where they're not supposed to, getting sucked into the digital world. Now their data with the data. Eventually, the data comes out to them. It does none of it seem
Great. It's a lot
pretty
of fun.
existential when you put it that way. Yeah.
And the fact that they're remaking it for like a modern setting is really cool for what they're doing.
Cool. All right. I'm not really plugged into Pokemon right now, but maybe when it's done, they'll
Check
have
it
enough
out.
episodes where I can watch.
I know at least with my queue, I'm watching Avatar. Then I've already seen Dragon Ball Super, but Charlotte and I are going to watch Dragon Ball Super. And then after that, I'm actually going to give Naruto a shot.
No way.
That's a long
You're
one.
going to the
I'm,
Naruto.
I think I'm going to give it a shot. You know what I mean? I want to like, I don't know if I'm going to watch the full thing, but like the first series of Naruto, because I know it spans out into like 3 different series at this point. But I'm talking about watching that first series of Naruto.
Well, the second series is technically canon to the original story.
Oh,
So
yeah, no, it's not a canonical thing. It's just like I'm not gonna commit to more than 300 episodes at a time.
Right, but the original Naruto, the story doesn't really end. It leaves you on like a huge like cliffhanger.
Those
That if
sons?
you're-
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm not
And if
surprised.
you-
yeah,
and there's a time
watching
skip.
that.
Fucking
kind of-
kidding me?
yeah.
Are you
And it's a little
fucking
slow,
kidding me,
too. It's a
man?
little slow too, man.
Right.
They'll like spend like 6.
There's a lot of
Fine.
filler, right?
Well, okay, so you guys have obviously seen it. Is it worth
Oh,
it to you?
I had more fun reading the manga than I did watching the show.
That would probably be better. Something that's a little more fast paced, you probably would understand.
Yeah.
Like a video game or something that represents it. Like Kakarot was a good representation of Dragon Ball Z.
Absolutely
haven't
not.
finished it.
Absolutely not.
No?
Absolutely not. I've seen some of the scenes. The graphics are great. It looks fantastic, but it does not capture what the show captured.
It was quick compared to the show. That's all I cared about.
That's the opposite of the show.
no, which I didn't like.
The freeze of 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's how long you have. 3 fucking episodes later.
No, it was incredible how long it was.
But it's
So-
something else. It's something else. There's too much
Naruto-
content, guys. There's too much content, and I love gaming too much that I just don't get to shows quick enough.
See, I'm the exact opposite. I love watching and binging shows so
I
much.
know I've noticed that about you. You're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to series.
Right.
Yeah, no,
I'd more watch a show than I would play a video game.
I'm the opposite,
You
man. I
recommended
like
Magi to me. I love that show.
what show?
What show?
Magi.
Oh, Maggie. Oh, yeah. That was great. Anime.
Oh man, what a great anime.
It builds a cool world, and that's
Uh-huh.
what you need.
Mhm.
I don't know. And
A
Naruto,
cool world, an evil god, and the power of friendship. And you can make the anime work.
Well, there's Gurren Lagann, and I still stand to this day that everyone should watch that fucking
Hell, that was
show.
a good one,
That
too.
Gurren Lagann's a fucking classic, bro.
Goddamn masterpiece.
Agreed.
Fucking classic. Absolutely.
Start to finish.
very clever.
I'm actually I rewatched it these past like 3 days because we need something uplifting, and it's like, you know what? I want to just fucking go out and do shit. You
Just
know
go
what I
up.
mean?
You want to go up,
Yeah.
baby. You want to go up. We're coming up out of the dark, baby. Yes. No. Gurren Lagann. You know what I love about it is it's true to the principle. I'm going to sound like such a nerd here, and I'm the furthest thing from a fucking scientist. But anyway, it's true to the principle of the Fibonacci sequence. That's what the whole drill is about. You know, that's what the whole drill is about. And the whole point is you're not
Break it
stopping
down.
this drill.
No.
What does he say? Your drill's the one that will pierce the
Pierce the
heavens.
heavens.
We're just gonna keep going. It's a spiral. It's fucking. It's genius, bro. And I really love, because I feel like some people this was a turn off for them, but I feel like for others it's a turn on. That it knows it's ridiculous.
Oh,
And it lets itself just be fucking ridiculous.
And if you can just like suspend your disbelief,
yep,
and just let it take you.
My only critique of the show is that as a whole, Act 2 was a little weak just because they kind of sunk into the Monster of the Week trend. We had like 4 or 5 episodes where we really just did Monster of the Week. And those were important character building moments, don't get me wrong. But I only say that's a weak point because literally like the first act and third act are like porcelain and gold. Okay. You know what I mean? Like that's all I'm saying. Just because those acts glow radiance of the heavens, does Act 2 look a little weak? Otherwise, you know, it's fucking brilliant anyway.
I personally like Act 2 more than I liked Act 1.
I guess. I mean, that's a matter of preference. I'm not going to invalidate your opinion.
And do you want me to put a spoiler or?
Well,
let's
default to Joe. Okay, if you're my listener and you haven't seen Gurren Lagann, this is your spoiler alert warning. But Joe, do you care?
No, spoiler the show for me. I actually
here we go. Spoiler alert on Gurren Lagann. David, go for it.
You want to watch it?
No,
watch it.
I wanted to watch it, so you can spoil the show.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to spoil it.
Yeah,
no.
Okay, so no spoilers.
What anime have you been watching? Anything that you love, Joe?
What have I been watching?
Yeah, any anime in particular?
You know what, guys? It's like, for real, I got to this point during quarantine where I'm editing all day, and it's like, I love pro wrestling. I watch an hour of it maybe, and probably not even that. I'm halfway through Westworld. Westworld is one of my favorite shows, and I'm halfway through the 3rd season. I haven't even gotten through that yet. But if you really want to explore a show about just consciousness, free will, your reality, it goes super deep. It's like that game is playing 27-dimensional chess with you at all.
I saw the 1st season, but I don't have HBO anymore, so I'm sort of missing the fact that I can't watch the rest.
That's definitely on my queue.
Joe, you know what anime I actually think you love, and it's one I haven't seen a lot of. I saw the 1st season. I think because you're such a big wrestling fan, I think you'd love My Hero Academia.
Oh.
There's a lot of pro wrestling influence in there.
Yeah.
That's funny because my girlfriend's younger brother keeps asking me to watch that with him.
Because he knows you and probably understands you. He's like, this motherfucker likes wrestling. He'll love this.
A little quirky too. You'll enjoy it.
And that's the wrestling like MO usually, anyways, to be a little quirky.
It's one of those animes for me that like I got past like the anime and now I'm reading the manga just because like I just want to know what the fuck happens.
All right. No, I'll definitely take that one. Landy's the one who got me into my favorite anime, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I think is superior to the original.
And it's not a knock on the original. No. I think the original's fantastic, but Brotherhood was the way the author had intended it.
And you had the character of Ling.
Ling and Winry was an actual like difference maker.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's just so much more, to me, there's so much depth to the story of Brotherhood than there is of the original. And the fact that the original, without spoiling it, leaves you on a sort of a cliffhanger. There's some conclusion, but there's some cliffhanger in there.
Yeah, you gotta watch the movie.
I didn't. So that's a good point. I never got to that.
I didn't like that movie so much, if I'm being honest. So much. I didn't like it so much. But Brotherhood's another example, by the way, of it was God the whole time.
Yeah.
True.
You had to beat the dungeon master.
You see the blooper reel that they did?
Father. The blooper reel's fucking hilarious, dude.
What?
It's gold.
A Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood?
There's a blooper reel?
There's a blooper reel, and it's fucking hysterical.
I'm gonna have to check that.
Actors actually like would make fun of the scenarios and the scenes that were happening.
That's fucking
There's
great.
this great scene where Eric and Elric and his brother and stuff are
Alphonse
and now
Alphonse when they both get their bodies back.
God!
And they're looking off over the horizon, and there's like this big silence, and then Eric goes, I've been thinking. I think we should bring Mom back. They finally got their bodies back. It's like, no.
It's fucking great, man.
It's gold. Yeah, check
It's
it
all,
out.
it's all gold. We're
gonna check
blessed,
that out.
honestly. When it comes to like stories and like media content, we're so spoiled. And
We are.
I feel like we don't feel it that
Definitely.
often, but we're so goddamn spoiled,
True.
you know? And I say that to our benefit. We're in another way, from another perspective, we're blessed because we
Oh,
have
hell
so much, you know?
Have you guys been watching? There's a show it just got renewed for season 3. It's on Hulu. It's called What They Do in the Shadows, or What We Do in the Shadows. It's basically The Office, but with like 17th and 16th century vampires. And they're living in modern society. It's fucking hysterical. Check it out.
All right, that's a new
What's
one.
it on?
It's on Hulu right now, but it's on FX usually. And it's based on a movie that Taika Waititi and one of the guys from Flight of the Conchords made. So, like, they're involved. It's fucking hysterical. Highly recommend.
Recommended to me by people as well. My friend Greg is like obsessed with it. So, yeah, no, that's a good one.
Highly recommend it.
Cool,
All right,
man.
I don't have Hulu, so it might be a little bit of a problem, but you know, I'll keep it in mind. Yeah.
There's always, the illegal stuff. But,
Illegal stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty. When it comes to like doing illegal things, I tend to I tend to stray away from it. I haven't like downloaded anything in a long time.
Oh, no, I haven't torrented. And
To be
remember
honest.
those days?
I'm still there, fellas.
Yeah.
I'm still there. Listen. When everything and its mother was on Netflix and Hulu, there was no need to torrent anymore. But now, like, if you want access to everything, it's going to cost you like $70 a month. HBO, Funimation, fucking Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime Video. It's like, well, this kind of defeated the purpose.
Right.
I'm going to go back to torrenting everything now.
Anything I say can and will be used against me. I've never torrented anything in my life.
Well, Joe, you got to be smart. You only torrent the things that you
video.
own. You only torrent the things you own. You know, it's just,
Of course, you would ever torrent any.
like, I own all the Star Wars DVDs that I've torrented. I'm a lawful torrenter. I am a lawful torrenter. Thank you very much.
Full law torrenting, but yes. The thing is, though, it's like most of the best shit. Like, yeah, there's things you have to pay for. There's paywalls and stuff, but it's like you could go on YouTube and never need to pay a dime for entertainment for the rest of your life.
For good entertainment.
For series, there are series that are free on YouTube.
Cobra Kai. Have you watched that yet? The
Right.
Karate Kid sequel?
I have not watched Cobra Kai, and I don't plan
Freaking
on.
awesome.
I don't plan on watching a single minute.
I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm not saying it's bad. Those are not my words. My words are just I'm not watching.
Hey, did you get around to these series?
I know.
I think I might be doing something to him.
Look into
dropped
his eyes.
Cobra Kai,
He's
and
got
we're
that
like,
whole third eye going.
Oh.
Get that when you watch this many shows, bro.
It's true.
David, I really think you need to do like a 60-minute video essay about why Justice League is good. I mean, yeah, about why Justice... Shit, did I get this right? Yeah, about why Justice League is good. I know I'm kind of bringing it full circle here, and I do want to wrap this up within the next, 15, 20 minutes. But
I definitely got.
I would be interested in getting a long-form perspective from you. You don't have to do a video essay. You can call my stupid ass on the phone if you want. But one day, I'd like to get your long-form opinion.
Oh, I could go off on a lot of things.
I'm sure you can. We've gone there. We've definitely gone there. But I don't know, fellas. I mean, look, we've been at this for an hour and a half.
Hey, can I ask you on the podcast what's the future? Like, okay, this is the finale of this format of the Lodge.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's the finale of this format, but in some ways, it's like a reboot finale hybrid. You know,
Where are we going?
well, you're going to see a lot more of this. You're going to see a lot more of what we have going on here. I'm not having people in studio anymore. I as much as I did love having the person there, and maybe I'll do special episodes with the person there, but this just saves me so much time because, like, as I mentioned earlier, I would spend an hour setting up and then it was an hour taking it down. And as you know, I don't have a designated studio in my apartment. The studio is either my living room or my bedroom, you know? So whenever the guests left, it had to go back to being my bedroom, you know?
Yeah.
So this is just easier for me. I can have more people on. Like there are some people I've connected with on YouTube and Instagram, and like now I can have them on because they live in some other fucking state or country. You're going to see it framed around a lot of the things we talked about, like gaming, anime, and like these, you know, cool shows, whether they range from Breaking Bad to Full Metal Alchemist, whatever it may be. You're going to see a lot more of that. The conversations, I really believe, are going to sound the same. I just think it's going to be in a different frame. And that frame is, hey, maybe we do talk philosophy. Maybe we do talk mythology. Maybe we do talk current events. But it's all coming from the jumping point of like gaming and nerd culture. And that's really what the future is. And this is the format. It's going to be done like this on video conference, because it saves me time. I think it saves the guests time. It makes the guests more available because now they don't have to travel. It makes me more available because now I only need a smaller window of time. I just think it makes the whole thing more effective. Oh, and now I don't have to edit video anymore. I just hit stop recording and it's done. Like it's just too easy not to do this.
Now, let me ask you though, do you like doing it? Do you have a preference between this multiple person format or a one-on-one format?
It's hard, man, because that's like, what do I love better? Awesome thing number one or awesome thing number two? Like they're both awesome to me, you know?
Makes sense.
Depends on what you want to do that week.
Yeah.
Exactly. It depends on what I want to do that week. This is fun. I love having multiple people. I think this is a lot of fun because it opens a lot of doors. It opens a lot of doors, and it feels like a hangout. Like one-on-one, even when it feels like a hangout, and like honestly, I think everybody who's on this podcast right now, any one-on-one podcast we did a really good job of feeling like a hangout. But when there's multiple people and there's, you know, that amplifies the laughter, that amplifies excitement, that amplifies impact, it feels a little bit more connected. It's like a good example of this would be, Joe, I know you know this. Anytime you watch a Fight Companion for Joe Rogan, and he's got 5 goons who are fucking themselves up and watching the UFC and talking about any bullshit. And now the UFC serves as their foundation and their jumping off point. But God knows those podcasts have almost nothing to do with the UFC by the time they're done.
It was like the Game of Thrones debate. We had a fucking blast.
Yeah, exactly. That was a good time. And I want to do more stuff like that. Because like I think the highlight of the Landi Lodge is 1, it feels like a hangout, and 2, some really cool things get talked about and people have some really cool ideas. So I personally think putting a frame on it, like this particular episode would be framed heavily into DC Comics. Even though we went off and spun off on a bunch of other shit, the thing that we really like zeroed in on was DC Comics, and from there we started talking about, so the comic publishing is starting to decentralize. Well, look, all of media is decentralizing, and like you see how it just continually branches off from there. And as I said on my last episode, it's going to feel like the same show. Like, guys, this is literally was a test run for what the quote-unquote next phase is, and really, audibly, it's the same show. This was the same thing that's been done for the last year. Year and a half rather. But yeah, that's what's next. At least for the podcast, that's what's next. While we're on it, huge shout out to the Sages, because while I make a lot of videos on YouTube, and while the YouTube video game videos get by far and away the most attention, the Sages of the Lodge are all primarily podcast listeners. And that's something worth noting. And like I have some people who are Sages that discovered me from the video game videos, but at its core, there's this podcast. And as they say, the show must go on.
So it must.
Amen.
And I'm getting a fucking supercomputer, and that'll definitely amplify things. I'm going to get back into streaming. I really did enjoy streaming, but my laptop's 4.5 years old at this point. It's on its last legs. It's why I haven't streamed in a while, because I just can't get a good quality and can't run it at a good rate. So it's like, I'm not going to just stream at 480p half-assed with a weak connection. I'm going to wait till this motherfucker's here and we can go 720p, 60 frames per second. My nerd is showing. But anyway, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Honestly, if I'm being real, I love the podcast. The podcast is so much fun because I get to just do me. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are three of my best friends, so I have you on here so we could just talk and jerk off. And like, but see, if I'm being honest, if I'm going to be straight honest, I've found a really profound love for these video game videos I'm doing. Like a really, really
You've been
profound
doing
love
a
for
great
it.
friggin' job.
Going in.
Yeah, the quality.
You know, it's been a lot of fun, and it's so funny because like my favorite videos are the ones that haven't blown up like the others, which is pretty fun. But that shows me it's like I
So
put
now, what would that be for you? What
by
example?
far and away my best video, in my opinion, by far and away my best video is the newest one I just dropped that takes you through the hero's journey as Cloud Strife in Final Fantasy VII. It shows you each step on the way, each step in the circle, and I bring up the cutscenes that kind of paint that picture. I love that because to me, like, that's so much of what's fascinated me over the last 3 years of my life is looking into storytelling, narrative, mythology, all that kind of stuff, and seeing these certain patterns replicated everywhere I look is something that fascinates me. It's like we're all in the same religion and we don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Iron Man and Jesus Christ are cut from the same cloth. One was a little bit more flawed when we found him, but at the end of the day, he ended up a sacrificial hero who had to rescue his father from the underworld. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that really gets me hard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So-
this is why this story matters to you. You know, this is what it's telling you, grand scheme. You know, and I think that's why it's great. Yeah, I hear you.
I think I've noticed that anyone in my life who I admire, I think they're successful for their own reasons, that they're good at identifying objective truths and communicating them effectively. I think that's what great stories do, and I think that's what your stories do, friend. You really hit it home with that Cloud one. I was like, you really like what the greater truth of the Cloud character is trying to communicate to people. I really felt that in that last video.
What it's doing for the person who's watching it. You know, like they're going through the transformation just as much as Cloud is. And when you frame it like that, I just think it's really well done.
Well, that's why, to me, what's going to be probably the hardest hero to do, but the most rewarding, is going to be Link. Because everything you just said, J-Rob, that you're going through that transformation with Cloud, Nintendo's deliberately getting at that by naming this character Link. It's the link between the player and the game.
That's why I love him so much.
Yeah, exactly, because it's yourself. It's a love of yourself. Not in a narcissistic way, but in a way that, like,
adventure.
Link has a way of bringing the best out of you. You know, you're stuck in this dungeon. You're stuck on this puzzle. It's driving you fucked 5 ways towards the weekend, but it pulls critical thinking out of you, and you come away like, oh, I overcame something.
Because you're the hero.
Right.
You're the one who's getting past all of the obstacles.
And I think that's why every Zelda game starts with Link being woken up. Wake up, Link. Wake up.
Yeah.
You know? It's like your inception into the universe. Is Link's awakening is, in a sense, his consciousness merging with yours. If I'm going to get really existential about it.
No, I get it. Yeah, I totally understand.
You know, it's like Breath of the Wild's a good example. Link failed the first time. Why did he succeed the second time? Because he had you. You know?
Yeah, because you weren't part of that storyline.
Exactly.
No spoilers. I haven't finished it yet.
I mean, come on. You know Link wins in the end. Like, I didn't care.
No, he wins. No, freaking way.
Oh, God.
That was one of my all-time favorites.
It's just there's no game like it, you know? There's no game like it. And what I like that the Zelda series is doing, and this trend really started with Wind Waker, is they want to make every game different. They want every Zelda game to be distinctly different from the last. And what that does is, depending on who you talk to, they're going to have a different favorite Zelda game. You know, for other series, that's not necessarily the case. You know what the best game in the series is usually. There's usually one game that's unanimously agreed to be the best in the series. But Zelda doesn't have that. The whole Zelda fan base, for some it's Ocarina of Time, for some it's Link to the Past, for some it's Majora's Mask, for some it's Breath of the Wild, for some it's Skyward Sword. It's like it just keeps going. You know, for me, I'm at a crossroad of Majora's Mask and Breath of the Wild. I think Breath of the Wild's the better game. But I think Majora's Mask was just this perfect blend of using subtext and basic narrative to paint a really beautiful yet somber story. So
Agreed.
Majora's Mask is the stronger story, but Breath of the Wild definitely the stronger game. Jarob, I know you're a huge Zelda fan. What's your favorite?
Ocarina of Time is my favorite to play, to be honest.
I bet
That's
none of
just
you beat that water temple without the blue tunic.
I beat that Water Temple with 3 hearts. I beat the whole game with 3 hearts.
God damn.
I
You
can't.
know,
I can't
Jarob's
do
a
it without
sicko.
the blue tunic because this is ridiculous. But I really liked. I honestly I don't know why people don't like this game. But I really
What
like
game?
Skyward Sword.
Oh, Skyward Sword.
Skyward Sword,
I remember when that first came out.
beautiful.
You know what, Jarob? Maybe I can give you some insight, because if I'm
Yeah.
being honest, Skyward Sword is one of my less favorite games to play, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
because of the controls. I'll be honest. The story is fucking enchanting.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's the basis of the whole Zelda mythos.
Hmm.
Like, if there's any game that needs a remaster on the Switch, it's probably that one.
Agreed. And
We could,
and I
if
think
I
it's
could
coming.
play that game with a pro controller, it could be one of my favorites, if not the. But I agree with you, Gerald. It's a brilliant game with a
Yeah.
brilliant story.
Ocarina of Time changed my life, but Skyward Sword really just like opened me up in a really beautiful way.
You know what, Gerald? A lot of my channel, both podcast and the YouTube, is based around one thing: how impactful video games and the stories of video games can be. Now, we're coming up on the ending here, and Joe and David, I'll let you say your pieces too before we wrap this up. But Gerald, there's one story in particular that actually, to me, is actually quite touching and shows how powerful these experiences can be. Okami played a significant role in your life at one point. And I think it would be great and a great way to end phase 1 of the Lodge if you could tell that story of your experience playing Okami. And if you would do me the favor of bringing the microphone a little closer to your face, being a little manual about it, I think this would make a great story to close this out.
No problem. First let me explain the basis of the story. Amaterasu is a sun god. He's like this white wolf who pretty much has the ability to manipulate the environment because he's the sun god. You know, he can draw a tree and a tree sprouts. He blooms the area around him by sprouting just life around him. And the whole basis of the story is that it starts as all bleak. You know, the trees are not bloomed. The grass is brown. You know, things are not going great because he was not there. And you play the whole game just revitalizing the land, bringing the land to fruition. Well, things go according to the story, and you gain all of your powers, and you're about to face this ultimate evil that just sucked life from everything. And I just stopped playing the game. I didn't even like look at the boss, and I just like, for some reason I just didn't play out of like a gut instinct. And about like 2 weeks later, I was getting high with some friends, and I had this really like powerful, like dark experience where I felt like my mind was freaking out. First I was watching like this video of and then the channel changed, and then I was like, my mind and my thoughts were like linking what they were saying, and like thinking, well, this is what the character's also thinking while they're saying it. And it was just an overload of information to the point where I thought I was like going crazy. And so I felt this fist go and like punched my heart, like go through my body. And it hurt so much that every 2 seconds I started to like fall into myself consciousness wise and then pop out. The same you would if you were like falling from the sky in a dream, and then you hit the ground and you keep on waking up to your consciousness. And it was happening consecutively to the point where I had to get fresh air. I called my cousin, who like went crazy, just because I needed some sort of guidance, because I felt myself like losing myself. And it got to the point where the intervals changed so much that every hour or every time I would fall asleep, I would get that feeling again. And 3 days passed where I was not sleeping, because whenever I would close my eyes, I would get hit to the ground again. And then my thoughts were getting so like manic and like just like ridiculous, that I gave up, and I just decided, you know what, I got this game to play, I might as well just beat it. So I turn the game on and I face, and all of a sudden you walk into the room and this black spirit drains all of the power from Amaterasu, the dog. And he's just this measly shadow of a being. And he starts to like attack, and you start to attack this black figure. And as you attack it, Amaterasu gains a little bit of his energy. And as that's happening, and he like starts to get all the powers that you develop throughout the entire game, I felt myself like regaining myself. And it was very strange. It was very existential. And it got to the point where I like did the final blow, and he was defeated, and it was just, honestly, it was one of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced. It was a peak experience, and it's wild to think that it just happened from this sort of story. But I literally closed my eyes and fell asleep with the controller in my hand, and I've been able to sleep ever since.
Wow.
Can I tell you the trippiest part of that story?
Yeah.
So you said you couldn't sleep for 3 days. It's a very mythological trope that it took 3 days for you to be reborn. And like, this is what I'm talking about, when I'm like, these fucking patterns are real.
Yeah.
You know, it took Christ 3 days to rise from the dead. You see it everywhere. And Christ was based on the sun god, you know, the son of God. That's mythologically based on Ra and a lot of these sun gods in mythology. And that's what Amaterasu is, a sun god. You know, you went through the archetype. Amaterasu took you with him, you know? And then when you encountered malevolence itself, it became, then when you encountered it in the game, then you encountered it in your life.
Yeah.
And then only when you were ready to confront malevolence were you able to finally sleep.
100%. Yeah, and that's the power of story. And that is why I love it so much. It's a guiding force for me. Hands down.
Beautiful fucking thing. And that's what this shit's all about. If you're still listening to this episode or watching this episode, that's what this fucking channel's about. That's what tuning in to the Landi Lodge is about. Let's expand our minds and let's recognize some patterns in these silly stories that we love. So, we're coming up on 2 hours. I want to give you each your piece to sign off, say goodbye, point the direction into your projects. I know we didn't get to talk about a lot of the stuff you guys do in your life, but you're all very creative people who are absolutely killing it. And I know when our society kind of rises from the dead on this one and we get everyone back to where they need to be, we're going to keep fucking crushing it, gentlemen. So before we sign this off, say your piece and let's go. First one to speak up. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I've said my piece. I'm glad that I was on the show, and I really appreciate you guys all being here. I really had a great time.
Cool. No, man. I mean, I was on episode 1. I was on a couple other episodes.
That's why you had to be on the finale, by the way.
I've seen the full evolution of the Lodge. I've seen Landi go from someone who knew a little bit of Premiere and editing software to knowing a lot of Premiere and knowing some things that I don't even know. So I'm just hype, guys. I'm hype. As dark as it looks out there, it's like there's such a time and opportunity for you to do something for yourself right now while we're all inside, while we're just inside of ourselves. So, like, that's all I'm saying. Everyone, go make something today. If you want to see what I'm making, follow me at Joe Ask Questions everywhere.
Sweet. All right.
Got
Love
nothing?
you guys. It was a great time. Always is a great time. And what else?
Brown sugar and the blind albinos.
Oh, we had our first practice last night, gentlemen.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes me so happy, bro. The come up is real.
Oh my God, it was so great. Such visceral grooves. We just pretty much jammed. We played some songs. We wrote a little bit. We jammed, and it was just, the 5 of us getting back together and getting that groove back.
You know what I feel like all this is doing? Like this whole situation out there? It's like a Coke bottle with Mentos. And the longer that we have to stay in, it's just going to keep shaking. And then when it's time for Brown Sugar and the Blind Albinos to get back out there, when it's time for all of us to get our shit back out there, it's going to be explosive.
That's
And
the
I think we're going to
climax is
come
gonna go through the roof.
exactly. And I think we're going to get out of this with new perspectives on a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think the age of Aquarius is upon us. But motherfuckers, thank you for tuning in. Sages of the Lodge, thank you for feeding the Lodge. And my wonderful guests, you guys are awesome. You're going to be a big part of phase 2. I hope you have no doubts. And yeah, we're going to wrap this up. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Everybody.